you might have seen, like, ever since, so there was the horrible debate performance from Joe Biden, which gave Donald Trump some momentum. And then, of course, there was the attempted assassination, which gave Donald Trump a lot of momentum. But ever since then, and since Kamala Harris got in the race and Joe Biden took a step back, it really feels like, you can feel, it's like palpable that the momentum for Donald Trump just has not been there. And the poll numbers in key battleground states show that as well. When Joe Biden was still in the race, Donald Trump was absolutely dominating battleground states. And he has seen those leads shrink, including in arguably one of the most important battleground states. That's the state of Wisconsin. So we happen to have the perfect person in town today to comment on what Donald Trump can do to win over voters in Wisconsin. That is former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. So not only is he the former governor of Wisconsin, but he is also someone who has the ear of former President Donald Trump. You mentioned authenticity earlier, and I think that's something I'm struggling with this election. I mean, Kamala Harris's authenticity is basically zero. Trump's authenticity is 100, but to his own detriment often. Have you endorsed the former president?
Yep, I'm with him.
Okay.
Yep. I think the biggest thing for him in Wisconsin, again, which may be certainly one of probably 7 or less battleground states, it may end up being on the map the tipping point one way or the other. It certainly was the last 2 cycles.
Yep.
He won 16, he won the country. He lost 20, he lost the country. And I think that's actually very instructive. So in 16, part of why he won in Wisconsin elsewhere was because he was perceived as being a fighter for the voters. So they were willing to overlook some of the things that personally they may not have liked, some of the statements and comments, because you felt like he was fighting for you. In 2020, particularly in the suburbs of Milwaukee, where there's historically not as strong as in reverse it is for Democrats in the big cities, but there's a traditionally Republican advantage in the suburbs. That broke down. It didn't go away entirely, but it diminished in the 2020 election. And my theory was, as it is, I think, elsewhere in the country, was there were a lot of college-educated women and men. So not just people think it's just about female voters. No, it's women and men who are college-educated in the suburban communities who didn't like his tone. And they thought he was fighting for the sake of fighting. His key in 24 is he's got to make the case. You're not going to change his being a fighter. I mean, people say, take his Twitter away. No, he is who he is. The key is he's got to be the guy who's fighting for you. Remember a year and a half ago when he showed up in East Palestine, Ohio, after the train derailment? Biden was in Poland and Ukraine. Pete Buttigieg was nowhere to be found. Donald Trump shows up. He's got cleaning supplies. He's got water. He hands out hats. He takes all the first responders to lunch at McDonald's. I said to my wife, that's the guy who won in 16, because he kept saying, you're not forgotten. You're not forgotten. You're not forgotten, because they felt forgotten. There's a lot of people in America who feel like all the politicians, including a lot of Republicans as well as Democrats, have forgotten them in Washington. And if he makes the connection, I've not forgotten you, we're going to do things that will help bring prices down. We're going to do things that make you feel secure and safe again in America. That's authentic. That's who he is, and that's to his benefit. But if he goes out and he takes pod shots, I've argued both to him personally and to others, I don't care whether Kamala Harris is Indian or black. I don't care about her cackle. I don't care about anything else. I care that she and Joe Biden preside over this country where prices are up 20%, where housing is up in my state nearly 30%, where it costs me $1.25 more to fill up my gas tank than it did 4 years ago. And arguably under Harris walls, it will get worse. We shouldn't be talking about anything, not we, but those of us who support the president, that's what we should be talking about. Any day wasted not talking about those issues is the day more likely that we're going to have a President Kamala Harris.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You said you've made some of those points to him personally. Was he receptive?
Yeah, I mean, the challenge with him is he's a fighter. Somebody once pointed out to me, in Manhattan real estate, you don't get anything done unless somebody punches you, you punch back twice as hard. So I get that's ingrained in him, and it's not, again, I'm very cautious about this. Any of us in politics have big egos. You got to have something to counter all the nonsense, crap you get. His is obviously supersized compared to the traditional politician. But that said, he gets it, but it's almost like a reflex. And so I mean, when he's right, when he says, well, I'm fighting because they're coming for you, well, keep that in the back of your mind. Keep talking that way and focus that way. I remember 8 years ago, I told him the day after the convention, he started talking about attacking Jeb Bush and Ted Cruz, and I called him up and said, they're gone. I said, the stuff you said last night about your father teaching you how to build things and your daughter talking about how you talk to the workers in the site, not the bankers. I said, that's what America needs to hear. And I said, anytime you talk about something else, you give the media an excuse to talk about that crap instead of talking about what matters.
Yeah.
I thought, for example, last week, the National Association of Black Journalists, I thought he was great up until, right? I mean, I thought she was obnoxious. I thought it was out of
100%.
control. It was way over the top. And he was just very calmly saying, well, why would you say that? And and he had, he is right about historically black colleges and universities. He is right about the unemployment levels. He is right. So forget about her. Don't make a comment on questioning her. Doesn't matter. Voters really don't care, what she claims her ethnicity is. They care that her ideas are bad.
Yeah, and Democrats don't get a free pass on this.
No.
The whole everybody's weird thing, and they're not focusing on anything either.
No.
But
They don't even let her talk. Anyway, I mean, that's why she wasn't
hasn't done any interviews.
She wasn't at that event. You'd think that would have been the friendliest audience she might ever get. They don't want her anywhere. I loved it how yesterday in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, J.D. Vance pulled up, same city, same time, on the tarmac, walks over to the vice president's plane and says, she's not going to take any questions, but I'll be here to take them for you.
Yeah. She's gotten away with that, and the media's not demanding. I mean, there obviously is that bias, and I came from that atmosphere. And just so you know where I'm at with Trump, I had full blown TDS for like 6 years. I mean, I was in mainstream news. I would say I had convinced myself I despised him, right? And then I kind of came around to it. And then just 2 weeks before the assassination attempt, I said, you know what, I'm going to vote for the guy for the first time ever. And not thrilled about it, but I'm going to vote for him for sure. But I really feel like post-assassination attempt, his campaign has sucked. I feel like it has been horrible. And is that just me? Is that a bubble I'm living in? But I feel like the momentum is gone.
Totally. And we see it. Just saw a poll this week in Wisconsin that shows Harris is up by a point amongst likely voters. He was, last poll they took a while back, maybe a month ago, showed him up by 3 over Biden. Totally shifted. And it's one of those where my sense is, I was talking about this in Wisconsin yesterday, is there's a sense, not only amongst the campaign, but amongst many Republicans, many of whom I saw in Wisconsin a few weeks ago at the convention, who are taking it for granted. You go back not just to the assassination attempt, but you go back a few weeks before that to the debate. When the bottom fell out for Biden in that debate, when everybody, even CNN commentators, are talking about how bad it was, so many people had built up on the Republican side, accurately so, the argument that Joe Biden was out of it, was disconnected. The problem is now he's gone. So you have the debate, you have a really good convention. I think probably a bit of a missed opportunity that Thursday night, both with the president's speech and even things like the UFC had Dana White, who I actually like, but I'm like, those people are already with you.
Yeah.
I would have rather seen the president's granddaughter, who spoke the night before, introduce him that night, because you've got all of America watching. I said on the floor to somebody else, your audience is not here. Your audience is at home. It's the people who are curious and want to hear a little bit more. And that night, I thought they did appreciate hearing what went through his head when the bullet came up and on the ground and why he did that.
It's a little long.
But it was too long, right? It's got, and so I don't think it's irreversible, but it is clear that there's people living, living off of the prior couple weeks and don't see the momentum shift, particularly because there was such intensity about his state of mind. This is something I haven't heard anybody else talk about, but the problem is, if you're logical, you know that Harris's policies are Biden's policies, but I think the average voter has said, oh, all those concerns are gone because he was incompetent. That's why things are a problem, because he had maybe onset dementia, other issues. Now she's here, she's vibrant, she's exciting, she's giving these great rallies. You're right, that's all changed. It's changed the tenor of the campaign. But substantively, if you were upset before the debate, that your prices are sky high, that, you can fill up one cart for what got you 3 carts just a few years ago. If you're upset about all these other issues of the economy, with border security, with public safety, those things haven't changed. And arguably with Tim Walz, they get worse.
Yeah.
But nobody's really kind of woke up to that reality. Like, calling her names is not going to do it.
It's shocking to me that people don't, that whoever is advising both of them don't see that and are like, just
it's the problem living too much in a world of social media.
Yes.
And in a bubble of people, instead of really talking to everyday citizens who are willing to give him a shot. Like I said, 4 years ago, they may not have liked his tone, but I've said repeatedly, they'll give up some political stability in return for some economic stability and recovery.
That is former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker on unDivided. We chatted with him this morning. We're going to have another clip from him. He's also the president of Young America's Foundation, YAF, which you might have heard of. So coming up on Sundays with Subscribers this week, we're going to talk about the youth of America, what YAF is doing to try to take what is, I think, an increasingly independent-minded generation of young people and expose them to conservative ideas, the free market. And so we're going to have that conversation on Sundays with Subscribers.